Recording for this meeting has begun.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, so our first topic for today is to log into Adobe Connect in myAvatar, and then Adobe Connect overview of workflow agenda review. That's where we're at right now. After that, it'll be the myAvatar login and navigation. And then the remaining topics will be the forms in Avatar. We'll have delete last movement, client delete, client merge, change program emission date, backdated emission discharge, episode date and program changes, progress notes. And so we're not going to go over how to create the progress note. This course will be on the corrective actions. So when we get to progress notes, it'll be more what to do if you put in the wrong episode or the wrong duration, how to correct those items. Treatment plan and assessment, and then we'll take a break. After that, we'll have document routing, CDCI, charge data corrections invoice, claims, order connect, scan documents, delete documents, append documents utilizing the to-do list, correcting group notes, and then we'll have wrap up and questions. And after each topic, we'll stop for a few seconds and take a look at the chat. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask in the chat. Good. So I am logged into myAvatar now. When we first log in, what we see is the home view. In our home view, we have the console views up here, which are just different views with different widgets. Every view has their own unique widgets. So if I clicked on client information, I'll see the client information home view, and it just has those different widgets here. Our main focus will be on these two widgets, the client widget here, which I can use to search for clients. In the search clients bar, I could type in the last name, comma, first name, or search by the patient ID. So here I search for test, comma, Jean, and if I double click on the name, then she would show up in the recent clients. To the right of that, we have the forms and data widget. Up here, we have the My Forms section. It's sort of like a favorites, and I have some forms saved. These are all the forms we are going to go over today. Below that, in the search forms, I can search for the form's name or just part of the form, and then it will appear. The first form we're going to look at today is delete last movement. This form is used to remove a client's last movement, and that's going to be an emission, transfer, or a discharge. I'm going to go into the form. Okay, so we'll go ahead and continue, and if there's anything that Carol's missed, I can go over that with her after class. So, delete last movement. I'm going to pull up my client test Andrew. And if I look at the emission application form, Andrew has one episode, an admission into San Bernardino County outpatient, admitted on 3/1/21 and discharged on 3/29/21. So if I wanted to remove that discharge, which is going to be Andrew's last movement, that can be done through the delete last movement form. I have Andrew highlighted here, so when I click on delete last movement, it'll just open that form for him. And it's just a pop-up warning that says deletion of any movement will remove the client from any bed they may be in. If a client needs to be in a bed, it needs to be entered via unit link bed assignment. And so that just means if Andrew was admitted into an inpatient program and had a bed assigned, once you delete the discharge, he will be, or admission, he'll be removed from the bed and it would need to be reassigned. Okay, so once I pick my episode 1, I'll have some demographic information up here, client ID, name, date of birth, gender, social security number, episode and program. And here are the list of movements, the 3/1 admission and the 3/29 discharge. So if I just clicked on submit, the last movement would be deleted, which is the discharge. And I have a warning that says you're about to delete your discharge movement for episode 1. Do you want to continue? And select yes. So now if I go back to the admission form for Andrew, just to see his episode information, I'll see that the discharge has been removed. So he has an admission date of 3/1/21 into the SBC outpatient program, but no discharge. And if I go into delete last movement again, so I'm back in delete last movement for the same client. And so it would show that the discharge is gone, but because Andrew has services, I'm not able to remove that admission. All services must be deleted first before you can remove an admission movement. Any questions on the delete last movement? Okay, our next topic is going to be client delete. So if I were to remove the admission movement from Andrew, he would still be in the system. He would just have no episodes attached to him, but he would still be searchable in the system. And if I wanted to delete him completely, I would use the client delete form. And you can only delete a form once a client has no episodes. I have a new client called test delete. And test delete does have an episode, also admitted on 3/1/21 to San Bernardino County OP. And there's a warning, this is deleting clients who have balances in closed accounting period can cause the system to not reconcile for the current accounting period. Okay, so when I try to put in that test delete client here, it says all movements must be deleted before the client can be deleted. So since this test delete still had that episode 1 there, I'm not able to delete him just yet. But I'm going to go back into delete last movement. And when I select episode 1, I see that the last movement is the 3/1 admission. So once I submit, you're about to delete an admission movement for episode 1. Do you want to continue? Yes. Now this test delete client has no episodes. Going back into the admission form just to make sure. So instead of going to the episode select, I'm going straight into the admission form to add a new episode, meaning he does not have any episodes. So now I should be able to delete this test delete client. Okay, once I've selected, I will click submit. And now I see that he's no longer in my recent clients. And when I try to search for him, that test delete client is no longer there. When a client is deleted, the pad ID for that client can no longer be used again for auditing purposes. So although he's not searchable, he will still appear in the audit tables. Any questions on the client delete? Okay, our next topic will be client merge. The client merge form is used to merge two clients that were created on accident in the system. The first selection is the source client ID. The source client, when being merged, is the one that's going to have the episode move over, or the client that's going to be removed from the system when they're merged. So I'll just pick my test source. Next option is merge all client data through single filing. So if you select yes, this means that your source and target client was the same person and you want to completely merge them together into the target client. If you did that, the source client ID will no longer be used, not only the source client name, and everything will be on the target client. But you could have two clients with a similar name and maybe you added an episode onto the wrong one. If that was the case, you would select no for merge all client data through single filing, and then you would select which episode you wanted to merge over. After that, we'll pick our target client. And we have another option here, create new episode on merge. So if there was two different episodes between the source and the target that you're merging over, then you would need to say yes to create a new episode. But if it was the same program, if the source client and the target client were both omitted to, for example, San Bernardino County OP, and you needed to merge the episodes together and they're the exact same program, then you would select no for create a new episode on merge. And then I could file to merge them together. When you're merging two clients together and you're trying to merge the entire client, there are some rules. There can only be one financial eligibility record. So if both the source and target client have financial eligibility, one of them would need to be deleted. If you're merging two of the same episodes together, Avatar would use the earliest submission date and the latest discharge date. There cannot be any overlapping appointments. And any pending documents would need to be approved or rejected. Any questions on the client merge? Okay. Our next one is going to be the change program admission date. So once a client is admitted, through the admission form, the admission date and program drop-downs are disabled. So I go into the regular admission form for my test client. We'll see that the program and the admission date are both disabled after the initial admission. So to change it, I would use this change program admission date form. Okay. Here I will look up my client, select an episode, and if I wanted to change to a different admission date that's not 3/1, I could put in the date here. Let's make it 2/27. And if I had the program wrong and it should be a new program, I can search that program here. But these are not required fields, so I could have left the date blank if I just needed to change the program, or vice versa, leaving this program blank if I just needed to change the admission date. There are some limitations on the program change. We cannot change from a pre-admit program to an admission program or vice versa. We cannot change a Cal-OMS reporting program to a non-Cal-OMS reporting program or vice versa. And that's the same for programs that report to CSI. So I can't change a program that's a mental health CSI reporting program to a non-CSI program and vice versa. Okay, so Andrew's admit date is 3/1/21, and I have the new admission date set as 2/27. So if I click submit, the admission date has been changed. So once I go back into the emission form for Andrew, I see that his emission date has now been changed to 2/27/21. Any questions on the backdated emission discharge? No, I'm sorry, the change program emission date. That's the next one. Okay, the next one is the backdated emission discharge. And so what that form does is it creates a backdated episode for a client who has been treated and discharged but not entered in myAvatar. For example, a client receives immediate care, and then once the client is stabilized, he's moved to a residential inpatient unit, but due to the immediate care needs, the client was admitted in myAvatar when they arrived. Was not admitted into myAvatar when they arrived. So to capture those services prior to moving the client to an inpatient facility, the client is retroactively admitted, placed in a bed if appropriate, and discharged all in one form. So this form is just used to create an admission and discharge at the same time. Okay, so I've entered this form for test Andrew. I have a pre-admit admission date. Let's use 4/1. And for the time, I'm just going to click current. We'll use telecare. I'm going to select a source of admission, admitting practitioner. The date of discharge, click on the T for today. And we'll select a type of discharge and a discharge partition. So this would just create a new episode for Andrew that's admitted and discharged based on the information I put here. Okay, so after I hit submit, I'm going to go back to the admission form. I'll see that episode 2 for Andrew was admitted on 4/1 and discharged today. Any questions on the backdated admission discharge form? Okay, next up is going to be episode date and program changes. So if you use delete last movement to delete a discharge that might have been entered on accident, you might also have to revert a treatment discharge summary. So before a discharge, usually a treatment discharge summary is completed and finalized. So once you delete that discharge, you'll want to see if there was a treatment discharge summary that needs to be reverted back to draft. And to do that, we will use the product final to draft override form. So I have my client test gene, and I'm going to go into the treatment discharge summary form. I'm going to select episode 1, and I have a treatment discharge summary completed, and it is finalized. So if I wanted to revert it to draft, I would come into this product final to draft override form. Under the options, I would select treatment discharge summary. Pull up my client. Select the episode and then select the row. And I only had one completed, so that's the one I'm going to select. And then I just need to put in the override user, put in training. Display row contents would give me a report of the fields, the data that I've entered in that treatment discharge summary. And once I'm ready, I can click on submit. So now if I go back to the treatment discharge summary, it should be in draft. And it is. And so now we're able to edit the data that was in here. There was also a delete option in the pre-display if we wanted to just delete it, but it may be easier to put it back into draft to not lose the information that was put in previously. So there is a delete option down here. Okay. Any questions on the product final draft override form? Okay, next is going to be progress notes. So we're going to go over how to correct progress notes once they're finalized. When you finalize a progress note, that's when a service is created on the client's ledger. So when correcting a progress note, first you need to think about what needs to be corrected. Was it the wrong client? Was it the wrong episode, date, service time, duration? And depending on that, first we're going to the progress note corrections form. And so if you created a progress note for the wrong client, you will likely want to just void that progress note. Select my client here in progress note corrections, select my episode. The start date and end date, this is just narrowing down the search criteria to look for the progress note that I want to correct. So I could put in an end date if I wanted to, and I could select a note type just to narrow the search. But I could just leave it here and then select note, and it will pull up the different progress notes that's been entered for my test client. Okay, so the corrective action here. So if you created a progress note for the wrong client, you'll likely want to just void the note. But if you entered in the wrong duration or episode or date or the content that needs to be corrected inside the note, then you can revert the note from final to draft, make your corrections, and then finalize the note again. And so I'm going to reverse this note back to draft. Reason for correction, pick one of these. And then I could put in a comment for what I'm correcting. So something like wrong start and time. And since each time a progress note is finalized, it creates a service, we're going to want to delete that service. And that'll only work if the service is in an open status. If the service has been cleaned, then the steps would be different, and we're going to take a look at that in a little bit. So right now we're going to make the assumption that the service is open and has not been cleaned yet. I'm going to click on submit. And so now that progress note has been reverted back to draft. And when I go down to select draft note to edit, I'm able to correct this note. And then I can put in a new date of service or service code and just correct anything that was wrong previously. And then when I finalize the note again, it'll create a new service with that correct information. Any questions on the progress note corrections form? And you are still able to finalize a note even if the episode is discharged. So when correcting progress notes, you don't have to worry about that. Okay, so two other correction forms I want to take a look at is correcting a diagnosis and correcting demographic information. And so there's the update behind data form if you wanted to update your client's date of birth or social security number, anything that was entered wrong for the demographics. Okay, and the diagnosis form is also used to add in or update a diagnosis. So there's already a diagnosis entered for Jean, and to correct it, I can click on edit. This is an mission diagnosis. Since this is already entered, I'm not able to change the type of diagnosis or the dates. But if I click on the row of the diagnosis, I am able to update the diagnosis by searching for a new one here. If this was entered wrong, I can also void it, change the status to void, and then add a new row. But the delete row will not work. Once a diagnosis has been submitted, it can no longer be deleted. So if I try to click on delete, I'll get an error that says this diagnosis entry cannot be deleted. Please update the status to void. But if it has not been submitted yet, then it can be deleted. So for example, if I put a new row, and I search for the trauma diagnosis, if I haven't submitted yet, then I can click on delete row and it'll remove it. But once it's submitted, you can only void the diagnosis. Okay, and the next topic is going to be correcting treatment plans and assessments. So we'll start off with treatment plans. A treatment plan should only be deleted if it's not valid, meaning no signature by a client or guardian. The treatment plan can only be deleted if it's in draft. So if it's a finalized treatment plan, you'll have to first change it to draft before you're able to delete it. So I'm going to go into the treatment plan deletion form. I'm going to select which treatment plan I'm trying to delete. It's going to be the client recovery plan / ISSP, and this plan is finalized. You can see it final. So when I select it, I should get an error letting me know that it has to be changed to draft first. And when I did select on a treatment plan, the error says the selected treatment plan is in a final status and thus cannot be deleted. Use the treatment plan status override form to set the plan back to draft, at which point it can be deleted. Okay, so we're going to go to the treatment plan status override form. Select testing, we're going to change that treatment plan back to draft and then delete. And we'll need to put in overall reasons, so I'm going to put in training. This warning says, are you sure you want to change the treatment plan status back to draft? And click yes. Okay, so that should have put the treatment plan in draft, and now I should be able to delete it through the treatment plan deletion form. Okay, I'm going to select Client Recovery Plan ISSP again. And now I see that the plan is in draft. And if I click on View Select the Treatment Plan, it'll just show me the data that was input for that treatment plan. And then I'll select the reason for deletion. There's only one reason available from client. And put the comments up with treatment plan. Once I click on Submit, that treatment plan has been deleted. Okay. Any questions on deleting a treatment plan or changing the status from final to draft? Okay, so for correcting assessments, we have two forms. The first is the product final to override, which we saw earlier that we use for the treatment discharge summary. And so that's for the product assessments that came out of Avatar. But for our model assessments, we'll use the final to draft override. So I'll select the form. Here's a list of the modeled assessments within Avatar. So for example, we have the adult clinical assessment. I'll search up in the same client, Gene. And the select row will allow me to pick which adult clinical assessment I want to revert. There are more than one. So I'm going to select the one with an assessment date of 3/19/21. The print row contents will show me the data that was input for that adult clinical assessment. And then once I put in the override reason, I can revert that assessment from final to draft. Click on Submit. And so once I go back into adult clinical assessments for my client, I should see that one of them has been reverted to draft. Okay, so I have my two assessments here. I'm going to look at the one that had the assessment date of 3/19/21. And now it's in draft status. Does that automatically add the form to the staff's to-do list? That was for the progress notes. So once I revert a progress note from final to draft, then I will have a to-do list item saying that there's a note in draft status for me. The message came a little late, but if I look at the to-dos here, it was for June test and the form was the progress note. Okay, good question. Any other questions on the final draft override? Okay, so the last form we're going to look at before we take a quick break is the move selected data form. So this form is used to move data from one client to another. And the entity database will pick client, family, staff, state, forward, user. So I'm going to pick clients. And these are the assessments that we can move from one client to another. So I'm going to pick the AIM scale. going to select Gene. Select the episode, select the row that's going to be moved. So for example, if I completed the aim scale for Gene, but it should have actually been for someone else, I can just move that data over. And here in the new entity, I'm going to pick the client that the aim scale should have been completed for. Let's go with Andrew. And then I'm going to pick the episode that I wanted to go into. And I just need a reason. Then I'm going to submit. And so if I look at the aim scale for Gene, it should no longer be there. Okay, so everything has not been completed yet, so that means the data has been moved. And if I look at the aim scale for test Andrew, that record was moved over here with the assessment data 3.5. So all that information moved right over. Any questions on the new selected data? So our next topic is going to be document routing. Document routing allows users to electronically route finalized clinical submissions to multiple staff members. So for example, the adult clinical assessment, once you complete it and you finalize it, you are able to route that form to a supervisor or anyone that needs to review or approve it. And so what do we do if we put in the wrong person or we want to add someone to the approver list? That can be done through the form approver override. And here first I'm going to select the form type, so the adult clinical assessment. That's going to be Gene again. The from and to date of the clinical assessment. Just going to click from February to today.
Jeff, did you start recording again?
I did, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, no problem. So on the list of documents, we have the adult clinical assessment. And it shows me right now that it has been routed to Tyler Johnston, and he's the only approver. So if I wanted to add someone else, I would just click on the update approvers. And here I can add in either a supervisor or an approver. So if I wanted to add Megan onto as an approver for the adult clinical assessment, I can do that, and then I would just click submit. And then once I go back, I should see Megan on there. Okay, so now when I go back, I see that the two approvers on the document is Tyler and Megan. And so this form only works when the approver is pending. So for example, if this has already been approved and I wanted a different approver, then I would have to change the assessment back into draft and then finalize it again and pick my approvers from there. So once it's approved, you can no longer update the approvals list. We see that there's only one adult clinical assessment, even though Gene actually has two adult clinical assessments, and it's only shown one because the first one has already been approved by all the approvers and their supervisors. So although there's two, I'm only seeing one because there's only one pen. Any questions on the approver over? Okay, our next topic is going to be the charge data corrections invoice, and that is basically how to correct services. And so first we'll go to the client ledger. There are many factors that determines the steps that we need to take when we're correcting the service, whether the service is open, closed, claims, are there payments, adjustments, or transfers, is there a progress note attached to the service that needs to be updated or voided. So the client ledger is going to show us all the services that Gene has. Let's select Gene, all episodes, the ledger type, simple, include zero charge services. And in the client ledger, we'll see all the services for Gene. We have the episode number, the date, service code, units, charge, the guarantor that it's going to, the claim number, and the line balance. So the focus here is going to be the claim number. A service can have three statuses. The easiest one to correct is open, because if it's open, you can just delete it or change it. And then there's the closed status. Closed just means that the status is ready to be billed and no changes should be made on it. And it can't easily be opened once it's closed, but when it's in the closed status, it's telling us that it's ready to be billed and it shouldn't be messed with. And lastly, if it has been claimed, we will see a claim number here. So we see a claim number, it's been claimed. It could be open or it could be closed. If it's closed, it'll actually say unbilled. So basically open, unbilled, or a claim number. And so at the very bottom of the participant guide, there is a correcting services matrix. And here it has the different type of correction items and the steps on how to correct it. So there's a lot, and we're just going to go over the first three. The columns on top are what needs to be corrected, what to do if the service is in an open status, what to do if it's in a closed status but the accounting period is open, and what to do if it's in a closed status but the accounting period is closed. I don't believe the accounting periods are being closed right now, so that you won't really have to focus on this fourth column, unless accounting periods are being closed, and what to do if the service is claimed. And if it's closed, the steps are very similar to if it's open. You just need to open the service before making your corrections. So we're just going to go over these two columns and then what to do with claimed. Note content. So if you wanted to correct note content, if it's open, the provider can use the append progress note form to correct the note content. Even if it's claimed, the provider can just use the append progress note form. That's just adding notes onto the progress note. Wrote note for incorrect client or episode. And what to do if the action is if the progress note is in an open status, provider contacts billing staff to let them know of error. Billing staff checks the service status. If open, billing staff checks for payments, transfers, or adjustments. posted on charge and reverses if necessary. Billing staff uses progress note corrections to revert note to draft and delete service. System admin uses move selected data to move the note to the correct client and episode. Provider submits progress note as a finalized note. Okay, and so what were we going to do if the service is claimed? Provider contacts billing staff to let them know of the error. Billing staff checks the service status. Since the service has been claimed, the billing staff will mark the service for rebill as a voided claim in the AR console and make applicable follow-up notes. The voided claim will be picked up on the next rebill batch. Provider must void the progress note using the void progress note option. Provider should re-enter the progress note using new service option for the correct client or episode. After the remittance for the voided claim is posted, billing staff deletes the original service using the delete service form and posts the charge reversal. And so we'll go over one more scenario. The incorrect service date tied to an appointment. If the service is in open status, provider contacts billing staff to let them know of error. Billing staff checks the service status. If open, billing staff checks for payments, transfers, or adjustments posted on charge and reverses if necessary. Billing staff uses progress note corrections to void progress note and delete service. Provider must create a new progress note for the correct client and finalize to drop another charge. Okay, and what to do if that service that was as a date tied to an appointment was incorrect and it was claimed. Provider contacts billing staff to let them know of error. Billing staff checks the service status. Since the service has been claimed, billing staff will create a claim follow-up record in the AR console, create a follow-up note, and contact the provider to enter a new note with the correct information. Provider will void their old progress note and create a new progress note for a new service. The provider must also enter all the service data of service, start end time, duration, service code, and diagnosis if applicable. Provider finalizes and submits note to drop a new charge. Billing staff will close the charge. Once closed, billing staff will attach the new charge to the existing claim using the attached unbilled service to a claim option. Billing staff will mark the claim for rebill in the AR console. The claim will be picked up for the billing next time rebills are run. After the remittance for the rebill claim is posted, delete the original service using the delete service form, selecting to perform the charge reversal. Okay, so at the bottom of the participant guide, you'll see that correcting services matrix, and we'll go over many different scenarios and the steps that needs to be taken. Any questions on the service correction? Okay, next we're going to take a look at the progress note viewer. And this is just used to view a client's progress notes. We have a start date and end date for the note that we're looking for. So I could put in a start date of February, and it's going to be today. Note type to display. I want to see all the progress notes. I could click one to check it and then hit Control A to select everything. If I wanted the notes to be sorted by practitioner, or I could enter a specific practitioner who created the notes that I want to see, I could do that down here. Once I click print, I'll pull up a report that has all the progress notes created for my test client between February to today. And so the report looks something like this. I know that a new progress note report was created, but it wasn't imported onto this UAT. So in your production system, your live system, you should see a better version of this report. Any questions on the progress note view? Okay, our next topic is going to be order connect, and that is to correct the wrong dosage or medication that was entered. And we're going to do that through the orders console view. You may or may not have this. This would only be used by doctors or nurses. So for my user p-test, I'm already at the orders console. So once I select the client, I'll be able to see the client's medications on the right. Okay, so I have two orders here for my client test boom. And if one of the medications here is wrong, I would just need to discontinue it. And that is normally done here with the DC. That is not highlighted right now. But let me put in a new order and then I'll discontinue that one. So to put in a new order, I will just start searching for the medication down here. Okay, so I'm going to select the Abilify 10 milligram tablets. And I'm going to fill in all the required fields. Okay, once everything completed, I'm going to click on Add to Scratchpad, and then Final Review. And I'm just getting a drug interaction warning. Concurrent use of the medication may result in the risk of CNS depression, severely level major, and I'm just going to override it for training reasons. Okay, so I can review my order here. I'm adding the order of the Abilify, and then I'm going to sign. Okay, and I see my new prescription here. And if this was entered by mistake, to correct it, I'll just hit this DC, which is to discontinue. Discontinue date and time is automatically filled in, and we'll just pick a reason. Add Scratchpad. Final key. And the action this time is to discontinue the Abilify. And once I do that, it will no longer show up in the orders. So again, this is only for doctors and nurses, so you may or may not have this orders console widget. Okay, our next topic is going to be scan documents. So what do we do if a document was scanned into the wrong client? We can pull up the document in the clinical document viewer. And I know it's kind of small, but I don't have the ability to make it any bigger. So I'll just read all the selections out loud. Up here we have select type. This client is stat, so I'll pick clients. select all the individual clients, individual, and then I'm going to put in a client's pad ID, Violet. I'm going to select episode, it's going to be all episode. And everything below that is to narrow down the search of the scanned document I'm trying to look at. So we have the user who created the document, the document status, there's final and void, document sources, document origination date, form selection options, and form restrictions options. So right now I'm just going to pull up all documents for this client down below and click process. And here are all the documents. There is an issue with viewing scanned documents right now. I believe if I click on view up here, I will get an error. Okay, so there will be a scanning training that's going to come up later when this is all corrected. But for now, it's disabled, but there's a void button down here. So if you scan the document into the wrong client, you can void it here through the clinical document viewer. Another option for deleting scanned documents is through the delete document form. Here, once I'm in the form, I have the option client and staff again. All individual clients. And then once I click on form search, it'll show me all the scanned or document images that I have for Gene. And I have adult clinical assessment, and I have a progress note in here. Because anything that has doc routing also creates a TIFF image of the assessment once it's being routed, so I'm able to see those documents here as well. And I don't have anything that's actually scanned in for this test client, and the other one will produce an error, so it won't be deleted. But this, once I select my image, I can just delete it here. Any questions on delete document? Okay, next we're going to look at append documents. So here we're able to, in documents form, we're able to add additional notes to the TIFF images or scan documents that we scan in. First, you'll just select the form type. Since we don't have anything that's scanned in, I'm just going to pick the adult clinical assessment. And you can put in a from and to date to look for documents in that date range. And then I'll select my form. And I'm able to type in the comments here. Anything I type in and submit will be added to that document on a new page. Okay, so once, since this one was in pending mode, I would have to put in Tyler again. Okay, I apologize. Since the scanning's working, I don't really have a scanned document that I kind of penned. But here's where you would be able to do it. Once the scanning starts working, select your document, enter your comments, and then submit the form. Any questions on a pending document? Okay, next is the to-do list. So if you were to come out to our NetSmart wiki and you typed in utilizing to-do list, we get to this page. NetSmart recommends configuring the to-do model form so that building and clinical staff can communicate back and forth. For example, a clinician can add an item to a builder's to-do list indicating that he or she needs to correct, rebill, or void a service for a specific client. The use of this model form allows for communication to be audited and it doesn't get lost in someone's email. And then below that, we'll just have instructions on how to implement this model to-do form. And any updates that we have, you can just come back to this wiki page and they can be found here. And so this is just a nice way to communicate with other Avatar users. I do not know if this has been implemented, but this would be a county decision. Okay, our last topic for today is correcting group notes. So a group note only drops a charge when the individualized portions of the progress note is finalized. And so you would correct a group note the same way you would correct those individual notes, except for you would correct it for every client in that group. So you would use the same form, same method, just for everyone within that group. Okay, and so that covers all the topics for today. Is there any questions on anything we've covered today? Okay, so I'll be here for probably another 15 minutes if there's anything that you would want me to review or go over again. If not, thank you for joining and have a great rest of your day.